3-hour drive from Tokyo in a quiet corner of the Japanese Alps. Hideo Shimizu has been keeping a secret in this small house nearly swallowed by the countryside. But Shimizu has had enough of staying quiet. At 94, he's sharing his story with an American reporter for the first time, speaking about one of the 20th century's most horrific and little-known war crimes, one in which he was personally involved.
Look, I'm only telling the truth. It's what happened.
Shimizu was just 14 years old in 1945 when he joined Unit 731 of the Japanese Army. Only a child, Shimizu didn't realize what he'd gotten into. A covert germ warfare unit that tortured prisoners in the name of science.
I thought it was research meant to keep people from getting sick, but it was the exact opposite.
His job was to take care of lab rats.
I really had no idea at the time that they were dissecting people in order to kill them.
The unit was just a small part of Japan's violent occupation of China, though post-war investigations suggest it was perhaps the most cruel. This is all that remains of Unit 731's former headquarters in Harbin, China, where gruesome human experiments took place. In some of these buildings, diseased prisoners were locked with healthy ones to see how fast deadly plagues would spread. And children were forced into gas chambers so doctors could time their convulsions. Those images haunt Shimizu 80 years later.
What was done. But even though I didn't handle the prisoners, I still feel guilty, just because I was a part of it at all.
Shimizu is now confronting the atrocities of his past. He recently returned to China for the first time, visiting where Unit 731 claimed its victims.
If they could feel my regret, my heart would feel a little better. But they're not going to.
Shimizu's apology was well received in China, viewed as a long overdue acknowledgement of Japanese atrocities. But in Japan, including in the nearby town of Ida, Shimizu is causing a stir. Some darker parts of Japan's past are still debated, and for many, quietly swept under the rug. It's tricky for city officials who run this museum. It's meant to preserve the wartime experiences of local residents. This small corner displays several items related to Unit 731, but it also includes a disclaimer noting research is ongoing and that society has, quote, many different opinions about the unit.
People have lots of different views, so we try to maintain a certain balance with this kind of exhibit.
The museum refused to display testimony from local Unit 731 members, including Shimizu. Some of it, they said, was too graphic for children. But local activist Hideki Hara says it's because the government prefers not to draw attention to things like Unit 731.
Ida and other local governments tend to align themselves with the central government. This makes them reluctant to acknowledge Japan's role as a perpetrator in these events.
In recent decades, some conservative politicians who want to restore Japan's national power have tried to rewrite the uglier parts of its history, says Tokyo professor Jeff Kingston.
They want to create a more beautified, whitewashed wartime past that they feel would be more palatable to young Japanese and help nurture pride in nation.
Japan isn't the only one that helped obscure history. After Japan's surrender in World War II, the United States gave immunity to many of Unit 731's top scientists in exchange for their research, which U.S. officials said they wanted to keep out of Soviet hands.
The United States was a co-conspirator in the cover-up of Unit 731. Their experiments in biological warfare, chemical warfare, vivisection experiments, all this was considered useful and would give the United States a great advantage.
Back in his mountain home, Shimizu followed military orders to keep quiet. For decades, he told no one about his past, even as many of his peers thrived.
My superiors became professors at universities, presidents of pharmaceutical companies, members of the self-defense forces. Can you believe it? And me, I couldn't even work in a hospital.
These days, he's planning speeches and giving interviews to journalists, mostly from China. But the price has been steep. Angry nationalists routinely attack him online. Even his family is now distant, especially since his trip to China.
My daughters don't come to this house now at all. I just don't understand why. Not at all.
A high cost for telling the truth. But with the time he has left, Shimizu is done staying quiet. Bill Gallo, VOA News, Ida City, Japan.